I think that they want to establish an emirate in the Sinai, which will basically be composed of an indigenous Bedouin population which doesn't like the Egyptians. So Daesh is capitalizing on the animosity that many of the residents feel towards Egypt and Egyptian attempts at colonization of Sinai after they basically perceived the collaboration of the Bedouin under Israeli rule. When Israel ruled Sinai between 67 and 73, we had absolutely no problems. The relationship was excellent, and there was no terrorism on the part of the Bedouin. What were the dangers that Israel faces from Daesh? So I would say that there are two fundamental problems. The first is in coping with Daesh, the Egyptians might need extra forces. That would require a revision of the peace treaty signed between Israel and Egypt in 1979, where Egyptian forces were severely limited in Sinai so that Sinai could be a buffer zone. Israel is still interested in a buffer zone. It revised that already in 2012 and allowed 2,500 Egyptian troops. The Egyptians are probably going to make demands for bringing in even more troops, and that's a problem for Israel. On the other hand, of course, the intensification and the strengthening of Daesh presents its own problem, especially to Israeli tourism in Eilat, and threatens the border and some Israeli localities, though very small, on that border. So Israel basically has to find an equilibrium point between allowing the minimum number of Egyptian troops that can cope with the Daesh threat to reduce the Daesh threat in Sinai. The final point I want to make, and this is a bit Machiavellian, is that Israel basically gains from some terrorism in Sinai, because every time the Egyptians feel that they're coping with terrorism, they get back to Israel on the Palestinian issue, on the nuclear issue. In other words, they begin provoking Israel because they see in Israel a regional competitor. So Israel has to reach an equilibrium point where Daesh isn't necessarily totally defeated, but it also shouldn't be strengthened as it has been in the past 2 years. How do you cope with Daesh and other barbaric terrorists like them? And they're probably the most barbaric of them all. The simple answer is you kill them. There's just absolutely no room for compromise. You kill them until they begin to moderate. And usually people learn the hard way by incessant hurt. And that's what happened to many other terrorist organizations, and that'll probably happen to Daesh as well, but it'll take some time. But the only way to get to them is to hit them hard.
What do you think Israel government need to do?
Well, the Israeli government really can't do very much in the Sinai, because the Sinai is a sovereign part of Egypt, a very strong state, and a state with which we have a peace treaty. We can only do what the Egyptians ask us to do. And if they gain strength, as they have been, and the Egyptians ask for our help, especially aerial help, I'm sure that the Israeli Air Force will be more than willing and forthcoming to meet that challenge.
Professor Hillel Frisch, thank you very much for this interview.
It's been a pleasure being with you.